Welcome to the channel. This is Oblivion Knight, and today we will be going over the top 10 meta units of 2021. I want to be very clear, these are not units who just came out in 2021, but the units who had the greatest impact on the Aether Raids meta this year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Number 10. Ascendant Theorem. Ascendant Theorem is the newest save unit to hit the meta, and she hit it with quite the splash, coming out with a powerful stat line and a very unique weapon that allowed her to cover the weaknesses of so many save units in the existing meta. She essentially has Null C built into her weapon, allowing her to deal with those pesky healers and deal with those annoying wind sweep units. They also introduced a new powerful fighter skill with Ascendant Theorem, Hardy Fighter 3, which very much is built for her and her Ice Mirror preference skill. It gives her all the damage reduction she could possibly need, while also allowing her to pack a powerful punch to take out some of those annoying ranged units that pester your teams. While Ascendant Theorem made a major impact on the meta, she wasn't able to warp it just as much as the future units on this list, and that is largely due to the weaknesses she still has, such as her armor weakness, her weakness to guard, and her reliance on speed. You can also struggle with a lot of brave units like Duo Lyn, Duo Corrin, and the new Winter Lysithea, as they are able to hit her twice, the first one getting eaten up by that Ice Mirror with the second hit going through and usually taking her out. The biggest thing holding back Ascendant Theorem though is availability. Even though she was a sparkable unit, she's only been on one banner, so given some time we might get a chance to see what Ascendant Theorem can really do in the meta and how relevant she becomes in 2022. Number 9. Henriette and Gustav. Now this is a bit of cheating. Henriette and Gustav, while powerful units, definitely did not warp the meta themselves, but instead the two skills they introduced forever changed the meta. The two save skills, Near Save and Far Save, are easily the most powerful C slots in the game. It quickly shifted the meta, making it easier than ever before to succeed in Aether Raids. This is largely due to the insane interactions that save skills implement, such as the ability to protect all your units in the back line, while being able to offer never-seen support to your tanks. Far Save in particular made it much easier to protect your backline units and quickly put an end to the cav line meta. If that wasn't enough, the save skills also worked extremely well in the new meta that was to come. With speedy swords beginning to lose their place in the meta, Far Save units became the new powerful tanks to take their place. This was further reinforced by the movement meta that could be absolutely deadly to your backline units. With the power of the save skills, you were able to protect those units and would often destroy those glass cannon units that you would see on these high movement teams. What also made the save skills so universally powerful was that they can combine with the armor exclusive fighter skills to allow some extremely powerful tanks, but most importantly it covered the major weakness of armor units, which was their mobility. By allowing them to protect such a large area of the map without having to move, it allowed the powerful armored tanks to really shine. Even coming to the end of 2021, save balls are still extremely powerful, and the question now is, in 2022, will these save units continue to dominate the meta, or will intelligence systems introduce a new way to deal with these ultra powerful C skills? Number 8. Duo Sigurd. A 3-movement dancer with no condition like Rayson or Leanne is extremely powerful, and even on release, he was a very good unit. What made Duo Sigurd such a key part of the meta was the introduction of Saros in the 7th slot in defense teams. Because of the way the 7th slot worked, a new type of trap was created, the Dancer Trap. A Dancer Trap occurred when the 7th unit ended their turn immediately, allowing the Dancer to move up and dance them. If an enemy unit was now in their extended range, this would allow the defense team to begin its movement and attack the enemy team. What made Duo Sigurd the best unit for this type of trap is that he was a 3-movement dancer, meaning he can move from the back line all the way up to dance the 7th unit, as well as extend the threat range by the maximum amount of 3 movement plus 2 from the range of his weapon. These unique attributes of Duo Sigurd allowed him to have a key part of the movement meta that would come with the introduction of Legendary Sigurd and Not. And even though his main role was on defense, he was extremely good on offense as well, where he allowed powerful hit and run strategies to be executed safely, without relying on beast transformation like Leanne or Rayson. Number 7. Duo Lyn. One of the most powerful duo units we've received up to this point, not only due to her preference Brave Dagger, but also the introduction of the most powerful duo skill we've had up to this point, the ability to give yourself another action after you've attacked. When you combine these two aspects with Disarm Trap, you have one of the most powerful hit and run units in the game. But even so, this isn't the reason why Duo Lyn is one of the most meta impactful units of 2021. That comes down to availability. Duolin's impact on the meta actually came when she won Aether Raids in 2021, making her technically a free-to-play unit, which skyrocketed her to the top tier of availability. This forced Aether Raids defense teams to adapt, not only further increasing the demand for Duo's hindrance and Duo units on defense maps, but also units who could be powerful frontliners who could take hits from Duolin. Fortunately, this was around the same time that Farsave was introduced, so people were able to adapt and use Farsave tanks on their defense to defend against this hit-and-run menace. Number 6. Fallen Edelgard. Easily one of the most powerful units to ever exist in Fire Emblem Heroes, Fallen Edelgard is a complete monster with 9 effects between her weapon and her preference B slot, which includes some powerful effects such as Wary Fighter, Distant Counter, Special Fighter, Healing after combat, and damage reduction on the first hit. When you put all that on a popular character and make her available through sparking, you begin to see how Fallen Edelgard can easily become a meta-warping menace. That's not even taking into account how versatile of a unit she can be. She can be a Gale Forcer, a Far Saver, a Near Saver. She can be good on ARD. And she can even combine many of these roles together. When it comes to power, Fallen Edelgard has a surplus of it. If it wasn't for the fact that she had some clear weaknesses such as Dazzling Staff, Wind Sweep, not being able to double, and her transformation, then she may have been a much bigger problem. Especially when you consider the amount of units that Intelligent Systems released that directly countered Edelgard following her release. Number 5. Bridal Catria. With the downfall of the movement meta due to the safe defense, new defenses were needed. The safe skills had proved themselves to be extremely powerful and meta warping, and without the movement meta to keep them in check, a new defense archetype had to take its place in the meta. Bridal Catria offered many of the things needed for a defense to overpower these save balls, in the form of triangle attack allowing for 2 consecutive attacks, possibly up to 4, but also the orders buff allowing for high mobility. Bridal Catria quickly proved to be the perfect unit for this meta shift, as she not only offered power to your deadly units on your team, but to your frontliners as well. Even the most sturdy of save units are going to struggle to take 2 consecutive hits from a legendary Byleth or a legendary Chrom in the face. When you add that to the deceptive range that Catria Ball can offer, it becomes clear why the Catria Ball became an archetype in defense teams extremely quickly. As prominent as Catria Balls have become, one of the key factors that has kept Catria Balls from becoming one of the most powerful defense types in the Vault of Heavens is availability. Unfortunately, as a seasonal locked 5-star, her availability has been less than desirable, and she's only been available on 2 banners so far, both of which were not sparkable. Who knows, in May when we get the rerun, we might just be seeing a lot more Catria Balls popping up. Number 4. Duolith. Duolith quickly proved to be one of the most powerful defensive duo units we've ever had in Fire Emblem Heroes, and this was largely due to the state of the meta at the time. A large portion of the meta was consisting of God Sword units and healing tanks, both of which Duolith directly countered through his preference weapon and his new skill he introduced, Fatal Smoke. That's not even fully taking into account how powerful he is as a unit. As a red cav mage, he offered an extremely high threat range, and with his massive attack and auto double built into his weapon, he could be absolutely horrifying to tank. Especially in the current meta where so many of the units were red swords or were relying on healing to survive multiple encounters. Duolith didn't just show up at the perfect timing, he also showed up on the perfect banner, as he shared focus with 2 other meta impactful units, Henriette and Gustav. Most people think color sharing is bad, but actually it's quite good, as many of the people who were going for far save on Henriette would actually pick up Duoliths along the way, allowing them to have a powerful threat on ARD, while also picking up save skills that could help them on Aether Raids offense. While typically seasonal 5-stars have very bad availability, and usually it takes a couple reruns for them to actually start affecting the meta, due to the power of the save skills and Duolith, the banner was actually rolled on quite a bit. In Vault of Heaven, Duolith's impact on the meta was almost immediate. Duolith was a complete plague on the meta. Personally, Duolith caused the biggest problem for me in my personal meta, as it pushed me away from using healing tanks, which are my favorite, such as Brave Ike or Fallen Ike. But even with Duolith's massive impact on the meta, there are still a few more units who completely warped the meta around themselves throughout the year. Number 3. Legendary Sigurd. The progenitor of the movement meta, one of the most powerful legendaries we've seen to date, Legendary Sigurd's premiere into the meta completely warped it. He brought out the movement meta and he was the king of it. What made Legendary Sigurd so absurdly powerful was his preference special, Holy Knight Aura, which granted him extra movement, but more importantly when it procced, it gave extra movement to everyone on the team no matter where they were. This drastically shrunk Aether Raids' defense maps and made it much more difficult to protect all your support units or mythics. And not only that, with Legendary Sigurd's forward movement, he could threaten a whole column by himself. If that wasn't enough, Legendary Sigurd came with Hollow Turfing, a very powerful preference weapon that granted him special cooldown plus $5 stats, a guaranteed follow-up attack, and damage reduction. Combining that with his inherited preference B skill from original Sigurd, Crusader's Ward, made him very difficult to take down with many of the common hit and run units such as Duo Lin. And if that wasn't enough, they threw Fatal Smoke on him just to make him even more annoying. One of the most powerful strategies in Aether Raids defense has always been to steal the initiative away from the offensive team. This has been done via Restore or Rally Traps, but Legendary Sigurd took this to a whole new level. Not only could he steal the initiative from the team on turn 1, he could have half your team dead by the end of it. The scary thing is, Legendary Sigurd hadn't even gotten his best partner yet. So let's move on to number 2. Number 2. Not. Not quickly became the most powerful mythic available in the game, and this wasn't due to the double bonus her built into her weapon, it wasn't due to her preference B skill that offered speed-based damage reduction, it wasn't because she introduced attack speed menace, it was all because of one powerful skill, Pathfinder. Pathfinder essentially allowed anyone to move through her without consuming any of their movement, which just further enabled the movement meta to go absolutely bonkers. If this wasn't worse enough, Pathfinder actually stacks, so if you have 2 knots next to each other, you can move 2 spaces without consuming any movement. This led to some absolutely degenerate maps where multiple knots would be stacked up together with Legendary Sigurd there, so you could hit anywhere on the map and then grant that extra movement so that the other threatening unit on the map could come down and smash you as well. Even if you weren't running into a degenerate map that had multiple knots, Not granted the 7th defense slot, which means she also enabled dance traps, which allowed units like Duo Sigurd, the dancer, to shine. While Not wasn't the powerhouse that Legendary Sigurd was, she was definitely the enabler of all these degenerate maps, and her inclusion in the meta quickly gave rise to almost unbeatable maps. If it wasn't for the save skills, Aether Raids meta might have literally fell apart. What made her even more impactful than Legendary Sigurd though would be availability. While Legendary Sigurd was only on one legendary banner up to this point, Not was available on a new heroes banner that was sparkable. So that means everyone had the chance to make a degenerate map with Not. While with Legendary Sigurd, sometimes you could avoid him in Aether Raids, just not run into a map with him. Not's presence was literally everywhere. Light and Dark Season quickly became the worst season possible, and instead of Aether Raids having any level of fun or strategy, it instead became a survival game, seeing if you could survive past turn 1. Not's degeneracy was so bad that after a mere 22 days, intelligence systems introduced a safety fence to help stop these turn 1 teams. This is one of the first times intelligence systems had to actually introduce a new building due to the meta being warped so horribly. While the safety fence did help, it didn't stop this archetype completely, and Not's impact on the meta has forever changed Aether Raids. Number 1. Brave Hector became the standard upon which every other unit and every map was judged. If you built a new defense team, one of the first questions you had to ask yourself was, could Brave Hector beat it? And when it came to offense, it was, do I want to have fun today, or do I want to just use Brave Hector? Brave Hector easily became one of the most powerful units in the Aether Raids meta. This was due to several factors though. First, his extremely powerful Refine. Accelerated special cooldown, neutralizing armor weaknesses, stopping follow-ups with guaranteeing his own, reducing the enemy's attack and defense, and almost most importantly, nullifying his own penalties. Hector literally was the full package, and his Refine actually came out the year before. The reason why Brave Hector didn't take over the meta immediately was due to 2 factors. First of all, he needed healing, so you either ran a build where he ran Soul and then he healed on every hit, or you ran Bonfire to secure the kills. Secondly, often in Aether Raids, the enemy team would just run right past Brave Hector, killing all of his mythics behind him and all of his supports. Luckily, the solution to both these problems came quite quickly. In the December Tempest trial, we got the Mystic Boost Seal. The Mystic Boost Seal not only offered healing for Hector, but it also helped to nullify his weakness to healers. Next, and more importantly, came the Save Seals, and Far Save allowed Brave Hector to protect all his allies. This meant that his armor weakness of having low mobility was no longer a problem, and it also allowed him to run more supports than ever. This more often than not meant that the Aether Raids defense team had to be able to defeat Hector to actually defeat the offense team, which was no easy task. But putting all that aside, Hector was the perfect solution for the major problem that was arising in Aether Raids. Red units had begun to take over, and the movement meta was rampant. Units like Duolith and Legendary Sigurd were massive pains, but Brave Hector made easy work of them. If that wasn't enough, Brave Hector with his save skill also helped to shut down the Cav line meta. While other far save tanks could also do very well against Cav lines, Brave Hector often could defeat everybody on the whole map by himself. So throughout the turbulent meta of 2021, Brave Hector was the one solid foundation throughout the whole thing that the entire meta had to warp around and deal with. And due to this, his presence was felt throughout the entire meta, almost the entire year. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. Also drop a comment, tell me who did I get wrong, what units did I forget, and also what unit you think deserves to be on this list. I'll catch everybody tomorrow for more Fire Emblem Heroes. See you then. Bye.